This is TWiT.
March 25th, says John Peczkowski.
Yep.
BuzzFeed's John was, of course, with Recode for a long time, but he's now at BuzzFeed. How credible is this? He's the only one who has it.
He's got a good track record. I think someone else, I think Gurman has confirmed it now as well. He's got a good track record. The only thing that stood out at me is that usually they don't do it on a Monday because they want people to set up and travel on the Monday, and then they do it on the Tuesday. So Monday might be a concession to how they're scheduling all those celebrities that are supposed to be in attendance. Well,
yeah, because, and this is also, I thought, interesting. While we have rumors, and we'll talk about those later, of new Apple iPads and even MacBooks, Peczkowski says it's a news event only. There won't be product
news and video, all the Hollywood streaming content too.
Yeah, I mean that's so let me see. Let me read the.
I did ask him, and he said, "I said iPad Mini. I didn't say no iPad. Parse that as you will." And maybe that's just you never know with these events.
Yeah. Okay. One of the issues is going to be that as of right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Apple doesn't have a whole lot of companies signed up for its news product. Remember, Apple bought Texture, the magazine app we advertised, we loved, that was actually created by a number of publishers. But my understanding is that the acquisition of the company did not include the rights to the products, to the content.
Correct.
So they had to renegotiate that. And, of course, they're also going to the New York Times and the Washington Post. And according to the Wall Street Journal, who I figure probably knows something about this, I'm guessing, Apple's saying, look, here's how it's going to work. We're going to charge $10 a month. We're going to take half of it right off the top. The rest of it we're going to divide amongst you based on engagement, how much time spent reading.
Yeah, that's not going to fly. That's
Kafka
stupid.
had a really
arrogant.
Peter Kafka had a really good response because I saw a lot of people panic initially, and his response was that there was a lot of interest among there are publishers that have their own large subscription base, but there are also publishers who don't, and they see Apple News as a way to go beyond whatever thousands of people go to their paper every day to reach the potentially hundreds of millions of people who go to the news app every day. It's not the same as the App Store. It's more like a Netflix model or an Amazon model where you're providing the destination site that everyone is going, and then you're getting your piece of pie. And for sites like the New York Times, it make no sense because they make enough money on their own. Maybe they make enough money on their own. But for a lot of smaller publications who don't have anywhere nearly the access to the audience, they're not splitting the money for subscribers. They are paying for access to that pool. And Kafka says there's a lot of interest, especially when you get out of the few players who have made a successul bid at the subscription game into all the other ones, just for that to be a service for them.
I'd argue that
that's not how, but that's not how this business works. When you're talking about the news business, you're talking about you're not talking about sites. You're talking about community institutions often, institutions like the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune, that there's very, very little interest in. There's not, outside of the sports page, there isn't as much interest in people from Washington State or people in London in getting local Chicago news. However, that's a very, very big deal in Chicago, and they have much, much better ways of monetizing that content locally than 50%, and depends on how many people are reading your investigation into state procurement procedures. It's and the people who are the news outlets that are even smaller, they have even more opportunities to monetize themselves directly than to say, first of all, everything I do is 50% to embolden your own policies, and then maybe we'll get a kickback based on how many heads we get. Well, we can already get that kind of deal just by hiring our own team of one or two people, or even doing it by ourselves. I don't know how well this system is going to work if they're going to stick to that kind of policy. It might be more legacy magazine.
I think Texture was only magazine to begin with, which is not regional.
I agree that for the Chicago Sun-Times or the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, this isn't going to make any sense. It's going to be really hard to get them to go down that path. A lot of them already have subscription models that are working. A lot of them are going down that path, but I think for a large number of magazines, the idea, they've already started buying into these ideas of trying to get into a larger pool. They may not like 50%, but I think for a lot of them, it'll pencil out. And the challenge for the New York Times and for Chicago Sun-Times is if I'm paying $10 a month and I'm getting enough? Maybe not the same articles, but enough of those articles. Is it going to be enough for me to keep on subscribing to the Wall Street Journal or to the Chicago Sun-Times or whatever? So the problem, the issue that they're going to have, because I think that actually the texture model or the Apple model will pencil out for about 85 to 90% of the publishers that are all in specific verticals, rather than the Chicago Sun-Times or whatever. The issue is for those larger publishers, if once I start paying that money and I'm getting enough of that news, for instance, when the New York Times started charging for articles in Washington Post, I didn't subscribe. I just went to CNN. I was just like, oh, I'll just get the news from CNN. I just stopped going to the other ones. And so
paywalls are a bitch.
Well, they're making money at them. But
and Netflix went through this anyway with their catalog content versus network content, right? Like Starz pulled their catalog because they weren't getting enough money, but Netflix is like, okay, we'll add all these other programs instead, and then people stayed in Netflix, and they had to start reevaluating what they were willing to put in Netflix to reach that audience.
Well, we don't know what the financials are for Starz decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's also, we're not talking about things like, is Apple going to be so, quote, focused on privacy that they're not going to let a magazine or news outlet to know, here are the people who are reading your articles. Here is for you data on how much engagement you're getting on piece by piece by piece. Here's how much attention your articles are getting the moment they're posted versus your archives that go back 4 or 5 years. If Apple is going to be as stingy about readership data as for news and magazines as they are with developers, that's just another thing. That's another reason why they have to do a really hard sell to attract these people. I think I've talked to, when we started getting those rumors last year, at least I know a lot of people who are in that business in New England, and they were we're just conversationally talking about what would you like to see, and they're saying, we need to have enough money that whatever pipeline we have to install and maintain is going to be worth it for our end, and also we have to know who's reading our stuff because we need to get some sort of feedback. A lot of the money they're putting into their own websites isn't so much driving ads so much as understanding we need to put more money into our political coverage, or we need to put more money into our sports coverage because that's what people are really, really interested in. That's what people absolutely come to our site in order to find. And so we're going to make sure that we take this person that we're hiring as a freelancer and promote them to full time because we need more on the spot coverage of this topic. So I know that I'm only reacting to rumors, and we'll find out more about these deals as NDAs get broken or as people are free to talk. But if this is the big deal, if Apple, I'll say speculatively, just if Apple comes to these publishers, small and large, with the idea of, we're presenting you with an incredible opportunity. You're really quite lucky to be on board with us here, to be able to get on this new service that, for all you know, only works on Apple logo luxury items instead of the Android and less expensive devices and the Kindle devices that we know that most of your city readers are actually reading the sports section on. Of course, you'll take whatever deal we give you because, my God, aren't you lucky?
Well, but I mean, if you look at
Apple needs him.
I think you're right about for newspapers. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, and you're trying to figure all those things out. But when I look at the dwindling magazine rack at Safeway or at Walmart, those guys are not that sophisticated, and they're doing the best they can. They know a lot about skiing, or they know a lot about guns, or they know a lot about cooking, but they I don't know if they're that sophisticated where they're really, because they don't have that information now on their magazine
racks are disappearing.
There's a reason why Premier Magazine went out of business, because people are reading AV Club instead.
As someone who's thought about creating a magazine myself about AV, doing live video, I would definitely do it on this platform. Because all I have to do is promote it, and there's a pay platform that's managing it, and if Apple wants to keep 50%, it wouldn't bother me at all. And I may do that in this process. And then Apple strikes you because you decided to do a series on sexuality, on basically sex tips for kids who aren't getting sex education in schools, and they say no, you can't publish that. Then publish it somewhere else. Again, Pixar does pretty well on its own.
You just said that you wanted to use Apple as your publishing platform.
I would never publish.
If you don't get
the thing is, I would never publish anything outside of those areas. I don't publish anything I wouldn't want my kids to read. ever on Facebook, on YouTube, on anything. I don't even swear on it.
There's so much.
So the thing is that it's
content that would get a strike based on or based on reasons that Apple is very, very conservative about. That now you have to deal. It's the reason why you have your own publication is so that if you decide you want to run this piece, that piece gets run. If you have to suddenly, when someone comes to you with a great idea of something that is part of the mission statement of your publication, your reaction is that I have to quickly reread our terms of service with Apple to make sure they'd be letting us publish this.
Pivot to video, Andy. Pivot to video.
This is speculation.
I just think you're talking about the edges of a large field. You know, like there's a big field out there that has plenty of content.
This is the field. This is the field. There's a reason why Premiere Magazine is no longer publishing. That's because people do not buy magazines in general, not because the content is not there. People can go. I go to the AV Club. I don't read People Magazine. I don't read Premiere. I don't read all these. I don't read Rolling Stone. There's the publications I do read, like the New Yorker, and they are the one, and Wired. They're the ones who actually create really great content online that I will come directly to their sites. I'm not saying that a news app that can collect all this stuff and find a way to monetize it for all parties concerned is a bad idea. I'm just saying that Apple has to come up with an idea that is compatible with at least what I believe to be the priorities of people who are in publishing, both the two people who are doing something online with a WordPress blog and the people who are now at the heads of a 70-year-old magazine that is doing a pretty good job of pivoting to digital.
For the ones that are doing a good job at pivoting to digital, that's fine. But I think that there's an awful lot of people who will just literally create new magazines for this platform because they see an opportunity to get. This is just the way, but the way cable worked. The way cable worked was, you get subs, so you get paid 50 cents per subscriber, or you get paid 25 cents per subscriber. You get paid $1 a subscriber. For HBO, they got $8. I think they now get $12 or something per subscriber. It wasn't a percentage of the income from the cable network. It was just, and what happened was you got that per subscriber, and then you made any other money on top of that with advertising or whatever you had. But people just built their little models, and they built their little cable networks based on the business model that they were given. And so the thing is, I think that Apple, by creating it, they created a big app store, and it created a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. And I think they're going to create this, and it's going to create a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. And the calculation that has to be made by the publishers is, will that group of people, the publishers that jump in, as well as independent publishers that come up and do this on their own, will they be able to continually outproduce that large group of people that, and as we start to get to a point where, like, I'm not going to pay for a bunch of subscriptions to a bunch of newspapers. If there is a couple newspapers that cover international that are in texture or whatever Apple calls it, I'd be fine. Like, it tells me what happened that week. Like it's not. And so the issue is Apple. They don't need all the newspapers. They need some of the newspapers to be in there. And so I think that's the challenge: is, are they going to be able to outrun something that's much more generalized? And I'm not sure that they can. I just don't think.
It was a Diller this week who said that Netflix has won. The entire model has been turned upside down because they have now so much power in the industry compared to where it used to live with the studios.
It's the mistake. The mistake that Hollywood made was pushing so hard on Netflix, and then Netflix was like, "This is not a model we can keep on going on, so we're going to go original." And now they've sucked up that oxygen. They are the ones that people are hoping to get into, because you're getting more eyeballs as a filmmaker on Netflix than you are doing your own release anymore. And I think that's going to be, and Hollywood has lost all of its leverage, both as FANG keeps on turning on, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, as
Apple's
they all
about to launch. Yeah,
Hollywood has completely lost all of their and the artists, actually, the directors, the artists, the actors, they actually have a lot of leverage, because they're now the most important. But it's all the industries in between are gone. And I think that could happen to publishers as well.
Yeah. Do you think that Apple will make this a multi-platform product?
No, absolutely not. And I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
All the money is with Apple users.
They do with Apple Music, though. I mean, I'm caught halfway here, because Apple Music, they continued the Android app and texture. They already canceled the Windows 10 app for texture, womp womp, but they've kept the Android app going. And while they retrofit texture into news for iOS and the Mac, they could retrofit news into texture for Android, because if they are going for audience and they're monetizing and selling based on audience size, then just like with Apple Music, and especially when they're selling family plans with multi-device, you want to support as many devices as possible. So I think this one is less clear cut than like iMessage or something.
I hope it's multi-platform. That would be another thing that would make it hard. Yeah,
they seem real happy with multi-platform when there's money behind it.
Again, soccer, football, internet football is, and I mean like soccer is. I'm always surprised by how much of these decisions about broadcasting and publishing is based on the making sure you have an availability to broadcast soccer. Because if you cannot, people are looking for soccer scores, they're looking for FIFA results, and if you can't get it on your device, they're not interested in it. So,
well, they're going to put iTunes on Samsung. I mean, that's a big indicator of their cross-platform plan. Leo, iTunes for Tizen. I still am not over this.
So, well, we'll see what happens. March 25th. Apple's obviously, if that's the actual deadline, they have 1 month to figure this out. They don't want to launch. I would bet they don't want to launch a news product that doesn't have the New York Times and the Washington Post in it. But honestly, 50% is
to launch.
Honestly, 50% is just what they're saying. I mean, they could obviously back down.
They did a whole event just with the Daily. Remember that? Assess the software.
Yeah. In fact, we were talking about this on Sunday on TWiT with somebody who had worked for the Daily, and Sam Mashkovitz, and he understood what the risks were. What Kafka says, and I think this is actually makes a lot of sense. He quotes a publishing executive who says, "Percentage is meaningless. It's the absolute dollars paid out that matters. And if we make more money giving Apple 50% than we would make not giving Apple 50%, we're going to give Apple 50%. And I think that's really the calculus. Nobody's looking at a percentage. Those are the fighting words you throw out. What they're looking at is what and so the calculus they have to make is, does Apple bring us enough viewers to make up for it? Well, what Kafka's saying is that magazine publishers are going along with it, as you said, and Alex and Andy, but newspaper guys are less excited about it. But I'll tell you, the real risk, and I don't think Apple's thought this through, of incentivizing engagement, is that a lot of publishers will be encouraged to publish link bait because they'll make more money on link bait. We already have that problem. Let's not make it worse, Apple. This is your opportunity not to do that.
Absolutely.
We'll see. Apple's not going to announce a product that isn't done. So March 25th is probably a soft date. That's the beauty of doing it at your own campus.
Will Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon be on stage, Leo? Because that's all we're really...
That's done, right? That's a done deal. And that's the thing.
They own that stuff.
I'm more interested in what the shape of this Apple product is. Is it a single subscription, as you said, a multi-platform subscription, so that you get music, you get services? Wouldn't it be great to have one price like an Amazon Prime?
Apple Prime, yeah.
Apple Prime, that you get everything, including iCloud.
Need it, Leo. There's so many subscriptions now. I'm buried under subscriptions.
That's what people want.